President Biden and Donald Trump set to face off. How each side is trying to set the tone. What the latest polls tell us about this neck-and-neck race.
Severe storms slamming the Northeast overnight. Lightning striking New York's One World Trade Center. A ground stop at major airports. Flash flooding in Massachusetts. This house in Minnesota crumbling. Plus, Ginger is watching the major rivers in the Midwest and the latest on the extreme heat.
Supreme slip-up. The High Court mistakenly uploading a ruling on a major abortion rights case as we await several critical decisions from the justices.
Behind the scenes at Boeing, the airplane maker opens its doors to reporters for the first time since the door plug blowout in January.
This is the 737 factory at the center of so much scrutiny.
And now this morning, another new whistleblower, as the company tries to earn back the public's trust.
Karen Reed reprimanded.
This is funny, Ms. Reed?
The tense moments with the judge in the trial of the Massachusetts woman charged with killing her police officer boyfriend.
New details in the investigation into the death of Friends star Matthew Perry. What law enforcement is saying about possible charges as it nears its end.
Soccer sinkhole. The massive 100-foot wide hole swallowing a large light on a field in Illinois.
Giant farewell. Janae is live in China as the pandas journey to the San Diego Zoo. What we learned about these big ambassadors.
And bonjour basketball. The French taking over the first round of the NBA draft. The number one pick, Zachary Rissacher, joins us live right here in Times Square.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning, America. Whit, give us that name one more time.
Rissacher. The accent needs a little work. Yes.
We're going to have a lot more on that ahead, but tonight is the night in Atlanta, Georgia. Biden and Trump center stage at the first presidential debate of this election. It's a debate of firsts. The first time either of them has been on a debate stage since 2020. First time a debate has been so early in the campaign. The first between a current and former president. And Trump is the first convicted felon to ever participate in a presidential debate. A few rules already established. You've heard their microphones will be muted except when it's their turn to speak. Trump's going to get the final word tonight. Biden got to choose which podium he wanted. Our political team is covering it all here in Times Square and Atlanta. That's where Rachel Scott starts us off. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning to you. When President Biden and Donald Trump take the debate stage tonight, it will be, in fact, the first time that a current president is debating a former one. These two candidates, the oldest to ever compete for the White House, and you said it, one is now a convicted felon. All of it making this debate unlike any other in American history.
It's the biggest test yet of the 2024 campaign. This morning, President Biden and Donald Trump set to come face to face for the first time in 4 years. In the final hours, President Biden hunkered down at Camp David. He spent nearly a week there, holding mock debates with senior advisors. His rival, doing any of that.
I think I've been preparing for it for my whole life, if you want to know the truth. I'm not sure you can lock yourself into a room for 2 weeks or 1 week or 2 days and really learn what you have to know.
Trump is preparing more than he's letting on, holding more than a dozen policy sessions with advisors and allies. Both sides already trying to set the tone as Biden prepares to cast Trump as a threat to democracy. His campaign rolling out an endorsement from former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who served on the January 6th committee.
There is one man running for re-election, of two men running for re-election, that cares about the future of this country and cares about democracy, and that's Joe Biden.
Trump's campaign hosting an event at an Atlanta barbershop.
All right, everybody, you're on with the president.
The former president calling in, suggesting his legal troubles help him appeal to black voters. Comments the Biden campaign call insulting.
I think my representatives will tell you this. The black support has gone through the roof.
Yes, it has.
And I guess they equate it to problems that they've had.
Trump is now the first convicted felon to become a party's presumptive nominee. And in another unprecedented moment, he and Biden are the oldest candidates to ever seek the White House. Tonight, there will be no studio audience. Mics will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. Both sides hoping that helps avoid this shouting match that happened last cycle.
Why would you answer that
because
question?
The question is,
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen,
By one analysis, during that debate in 2020, Donald Trump interrupted President Biden and the moderators 145 times. I'm told that the former president has privately acknowledged that may have been a little too much. We'll see if his strategy changes this time around, George.
We will see. Okay, Rachel, thanks very much. Our political director, Rick Klein, is here. Rick, you've got some new polling data?
Yeah, good morning, George. And the 538 polling average tells the story of the campaign. It is a deadlocked race. We saw some signs of things tightening a bit since Trump's criminal conviction, but it's basically a tied race. Both candidates have about the same measure of support. So we did something a little bit different in this 538 Ipsos poll. We asked people who they were considering voting for. So that means you could choose more than one candidate. And what you see here is a pretty low ceiling for both Trump and Biden. They don't get above 45%, either one of them. I'm struck by the number, though, for Bobby Kennedy Jr. That's almost 1 in 5 voters who say they may consider voting for the third-party candidate, even though he's not on the stage tonight. He's right now at about 9% in polling, so he's got some room to grow. Again, won't be at the debate, but could be a factor if you see a shouting match like we saw in the last cycle. As for the issues that voters want to hear about, these are the top things that voters say are going to determine their vote this fall. Inflation, by far the biggest. 50% of voters say that's a big factor. Immigration next on the list. Then you've got political extremism and abortion, crime, and some other issues. And this is striking. Donald Trump is seen as better handling all of the top issues, both of the biggies, inflation and immigration. Trump, a 10-point edge in trust to handle inflation, immigration, a 12-point edge. It's only when you get a little lower down that priority list into political extremism and abortion rights that you just start to see a Biden advantage. So that will shape some of the messaging. But here's one area where Biden may have a bit of an edge. We asked voters in this poll, who do you think is going to do a better job? What kind of performance are you expecting? And frankly, voters think both of them are going to do a pretty lousy job, but they think Biden is going to do a little bit worse. Their views on him a little bit more negative going in. So he's got a lower bar to clear. It could mean that Biden is seen as having a good night, even if he's just okay. George?
Okay, Rick, thanks very much. This means our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl, our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce. And John, let's start with the Trump side. What do they hope to accomplish tonight?
Well, look, Donald Trump needs to show that he's not what Joe Biden has portrayed him as, which is a threat to democracy, unhinged, somebody that is bringing chaos back to the White House. And frankly, George, I think that the rules of this debate actually favored Donald Trump. The idea that the mics will be muted means that if he comes out of this and it's a relatively boring debate and Donald Trump hasn't acted in the way that he is fully capable of acting, it'll be a win for him. It'll be seen as normal and relatively steady.
Because Biden has to shake things up, presumably. Is that what's going to happen tonight?
Well, look, the Biden campaign sees this as a real jumpstart moment, a chance for them to break through to a larger audience. And they hope those critical, undecided voters who haven't really engaged in this race yet. That's why they pushed for this early debate. The president's goal here is to hold Donald Trump accountable, to remind voters of the chaos of the Trump presidency. And as John says, he will argue that he is a threat to democracy. The president, I'm told, is also preparing to walk a fine line here. He knows that Trump is going to try and go after him. He has to show he's a steady leader and not get rattled. The muted mics may help with that. But perhaps what most people are going to be watching most closely, Joe Biden has to bring it. He has to show voters concerned about his age that he is up for this, and he has to convince those panicky Democrats that he can win.
Okay, thank you both very much. Tonight on ABC, watch CNN presidential debate simulcast. It all starts at 8 Eastern with the ABC News special Race for the White House with David Muir and the ABC News political team. Whit.
George, now to the Supreme Court uploading a ruling by mistake yesterday on a high-stakes abortion rights case from Idaho. ABC senior national correspondent Terry Moran is at the Supreme Court, where other major rulings are also expected. Terry, good morning.
Good morning, Whit. This was really an egregious error by court staff. In all the years I've covered the case, I haven't seen anything quite like it. Not a leak, but a mistake, and a significant one. This morning, a stunning mistake at the Supreme Court. Somehow, what appears to be a ruling from the justices on a major abortion case was temporarily published before it was supposed to be on the court's website. And the document indicates that the court will require Idaho to allow some abortions in emergency situations for now.
This is a rare slip-up. The court rarely makes an error like this.
The document, first discovered by Bloomberg News, was pulled from the court's website within minutes. A court spokesperson saying the opinion has not been released. The court's publications unit inadvertently and briefly uploaded a document. This case is the first major abortion case since the court overturned Roe v. Wade 2 years ago. And since 21 states have banned or severely limited abortion in the wake of that ruling. At issue, whether Idaho's ban on nearly all abortions takes precedence over a federal law guaranteeing that patients in emergency rooms get the care they need, even in the rare cases when that might mean terminating a pregnancy. The document indicates that in a 6-3 decision, the court's majority will send the case back down to lower courts for further review. The case sparked fiery disagreements among the justices who wanted to decide this case. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson writing, "This court had a chance to bring clarity and certainty to this tragic situation, and we have squandered it." While Justice Samuel Alito, the author of the decision to overturn Roe, almost taunting his colleagues for ducking the issue this time. Apparently, the court has simply lost the will to decide the easy but emotional and highly politicized question that the case presents. That is regrettable. So this abortion decision could come down as early as today. Justices can revise their opinions up until the last minute, and it is one of 10 decisions we're still waiting on, including whether federal prosecutors overreached in charging some January 6th rioters, and then the big one, whether Donald Trump has absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for his actions in trying to overturn the 2020 election, as well as January 6th. Rebecca?
High stakes across the board there. Okay, Terry, thank you. We turn now to the severe weather. Damaging storms slamming the Northeast overnight, and Ginger is tracking that and more. Good morning, Ginger.
Good morning. More than 300 severe storm reports from New Mexico to Florida, Tennessee, but also concentrated right here in the Northeast as we anticipated with that cold front. Hartford, Connecticut had a wind gust up to 77 miles per hour. And the damage, well, it came through. The lightning over Manhattan, that really supercell that passed by, had a lot of convection with it, meaning a lot of lift. And so we saw a lot of lightning there, some pretty big wind gusts of 60 plus. Queens, New York, 3 people injured in that vehicle as the tree fell on top of it. And that's what we worry about. It's really 50 or 55 mile per hour plus winds can do that. Allegheny County around Pittsburgh, they've had a huge year for tornadoes. They had 4 reported tornadoes on top of gusts over 70 miles per hour. Lots of damage to power lines and trees there. We do have a new severe threat because our cold front's gone. But this one for the high plains into the northern plains. Big hail is one of the primary hazards, but also damaging wind in excess of 70 miles per hour. Then as we start the weekend, Friday it opens up. It includes parts of Iowa, down into Missouri, Kansas City, you're in there. A lot of people start having plans for the weekend. They're outside, it's sunny, it's nice, and all of a sudden the sky opens up. Well, that's how it happens. You need that energy. So even Chicago waking up Saturday morning, Detroit, but then focus there for parts of Ohio and western Pennsylvania again. I can't emphasize enough, Pittsburgh has had more tornado warnings than the offices in Birmingham, Alabama or Jackson, Mississippi. So watch it this weekend.
That is a switch. Okay, Ginger, thanks. We're going to turn now to embattled aircraft maker Boeing, giving our cameras a behind-the-scenes look at its operations as it defends its safety procedures. Transportation correspondent Gio Benitez is here with the story. And Gio, this has turned into being a real mess for Boeing.
Yeah, absolutely, George. We just learned moments ago that the NTSB has sanctioned Boeing over this very tour that you're about to see, saying Boeing gave us non-public investigative information. The NTSB even saying it will bring new details to the Justice Department, which right now, as you know, is weighing whether to criminally prosecute Boeing over those deadly MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019. This after a tough 6 months for Boeing. With this tour, the company was trying to earn back trust. Take a look. For the first time since that MAX 9 door plug blowout in January, Boeing is taking reporters behind the scenes in a highly choreographed and controlled tour of its Renton, Washington factory. This is where that Alaska Airlines plane was built, and it left here without those critical bolts on the door plug. Boeing says the plane's fuselage arrived at this factory from Spirit Aerosystems with defects, so Boeing employees had to remove the door plug. But at the end of the production line, the plane had to be moved outside. A move crew put the door plug in without the bolts.
Their job is to just close it, and they count on existing paperwork very transparently. The fact that one employee could not fill out one piece of paperwork in this condition and could result in an accident was shocking to all of us.
And now this morning, a new whistleblower, this time from Spirit Aerosystems, which builds the fuselage for Boeing. The mechanic alleging he witnessed issues that could compromise power and air pressure on planes. He claims he raised the issues with Spirit and Boeing, but was fired. He joins a dozen other whistleblowers who have gone to Congress. Boeing insists it's listening to employees, including at work stand-downs. Were the whistleblowers who came before Congress a part of that?
Whistleblowers who've come before Congress were absolutely invited to participate in that.
And here inside the 737 factory, each plane goes through 10 different stations with entirely different teams. Boeing says that safety procedures have changed at each of those stations. including a new mandatory employee stand down for an hour per week to discuss issues. Meanwhile, on that new whistleblower at Spirit Aerosystems, Boeing says it took his concerns very seriously and investigated them, but found no safety concern. Spirit says it's looking into the matter. And we've got to say again, this was a tightly controlled tour. It is an active factory, of course, but this wasn't your typical interview situation, George.
It sure was not. And Geo, Boeing also in space with the Starliner, which can't come home yet.
Yeah, it has not come home. They are still trying to work on helium leaks and issues with the thrusters. Now, obviously, they don't want to put these astronauts in danger. It may seem like the astronauts are stranded, but NASA insists that they are not, that this is all part of the testing for Starliner. But without a doubt, there's an issue here. And if the Boeing Starliner can't bring them home, they very well may have to rely on SpaceX to do that for them, guys.
Gio Benitez, thanks very much, Rebecca.
They have a lot of work to do there. Okay, Gio, thank you. The U.S. women's Olympic soccer team, meantime, their roster is set, and for the first time since 2008, it will not include Alex Morgan. Lara's here with the details. And Lara, this seems like a new generation they've got going.
Exactly. Well said. 18 players, 4 alternates are headed to Paris. 9 first-time Olympians, as you said. One name, though, is missing from the group. The woman who has been one of the faces of the organization and the game, frankly, for more than a decade. Alex Morgan, who turns 35 next week, is a 3-time Olympian who helped the team win gold in 2012. And while she has been working through an ankle injury, she is still playing, very much wanted to be part of the team. But the team's new coach, Emma Hayes, said in a press conference it was a tough decision, especially with Alex's record, but the team, she says, ultimately wanted to go in another direction. Morgan posted her reaction on social media saying she's disappointed about not having the opportunity to represent our country in the Olympics, but that she will be cheering the team on alongside the rest of the country. Great attitude there. Reaction also surrounding a young player who did make the roster, Corbin Albert, who previously shared some controversial posts on social media about the LGBTQ plus community. She has since apologized, and Coach Hayes is standing by her decision to put Corbin on the roster. This young team is looking for some redemption after falling short at the World Cup. They will play their first match at the Paris Games on July 25th against Zambia, and we will be there.
It will be quite the match.
Yeah, and a new team to watch.
Absolutely. Some exciting young players, though.
Yeah.
It will be fun to watch.
I love Alex.
Yeah.
She's a great player.
No question.
Thank you, Lara.